Anyway, so it starts on 2012. She sees Hawkeye in the distance, and all he has is a bow and arrow and the will to live. He's scaling a wall, fighting against the aliens, and he's an Avenger with no superpowers. And she says this in the middle of the show about how that inspired her to want to become an archer and also want to become a hero because all heroes don't have to fly and have
Hmm.
lasers coming out of their hands. And I thought that was pretty cool.
It was.
Like, have you ever been inspired yourself by someone else's profession when you were younger, maybe, and it kind of made you say, like, I want to do that?
Um, Not so. I would say in this instance, the most would be like I would say Dave Chappelle, and
Okay.
not necessarily for stand-up comedy. I don't know if I talked this or not, but there's an interview. I think it's in behind. It's called Behind the Actor Studio. It's fucking amazing. It's like one of the first really deep dives in Dave Chappelle after everybody thought he went crazy, and him like shedding light on some of those things. And anyway, it's like 2 hours long. There's a part in there where Dave Chappelle, where he's talking to the guy, I forget his name, and he's talking about how he went to go become a comedian, and him talking to his dad, and his dad basically saying like, well, what if you don't make it? And then his response was essentially that he was like, he told his dad that he's a teacher. He's like, if I can make as much money doing comedy as you do being a teacher, then I made it. Like I don't have to be rich. I just have to make
Right.
enough money. Like if I make as much as you do, then I made it.
Right. I get it.
And that is something that really inspired me when it went to like going into streaming and like this podcast. So when I think about it, like everybody thinks of doing these things as like becoming rich, and
Yeah.
becoming rich would be cool, but that's not really necessarily my goal. If I can just do this and make enough money as anybody makes doing a normal job, then I made it, in
Right.
my opinion. Like that's
I
all I
agree with
need.
that.
And
Yeah.
so
Like, I'm an accountant, and, accountant, we make pretty decent money. But if I could do content creation, podcasting, or something along those lines and make the same money that I make as an accountant, then I would 100% quit my job and just do this full time. Like, this
yeah,
is a dream job to me. Like, I love doing this, and getting paid to do it is a dream in itself. Like, that would be the most
exactly.
ideal thing. And I actually was inspired by podcasts that I've been listening to for the last 10 years to even start a podcast. Like, that was
Hmm.
the original. Like, obviously, part of it is you and me have been friends for over a decade, and we've
Yeah.
had conversations that are so long. Like, we naturally talk for hours. Just naturally.
Yeah.
On a regular day, we could just talk for hours. And the conversation goes all over the place. And obviously, a lot of it is certain stuff that I feel like we would have to make exclusive content because our conversations go into dark places sometimes, or just like shit that would definitely get us canceled. Even though we're like, a lot of times we're just joking about it, but I've definitely been inspired by other podcasters to do this. And now the podcast market is like very saturated. There's a lot of them out there. It's really hard to stand out, but I think that we have something unique here because
Hmm.
our podcast is like a library of all of these different nerd related topics. And I was mainly asking you because your father, as people know on this, if you listen to this podcast for a while, you know that Kenny's father is a police officer.
Yeah.
And you as a kid, like, I'm sure you've seen him in uniform before. I'm sure you've seen
Oh
him
yeah.
coming from like crime scenes and stuff like that, and just like being, heroic and things like that. And that can inspire you to want to follow in those footsteps, kind of like how Kate Bishop did in this show. She sees Hawkeye literally with not like everyone else has all these crazy abilities. Thor is God of Thunder. You got the Hulk, who's literally immortal and invincible. The Iron Man with like billions of dollars and this crazy nanotechnology suits and all this other crazy stuff that he has going on. And then you just have like Hawkeye, who's regular.
On that note, what's interesting, and maybe it's different, and once it could be different for somebody in my exact same position because we all think differently as humans. But
Mm,
if like, let's say I was just like a kid who didn't have any relatives that were cops, and like I don't know, there was some cop that I met that did something really cool that inspired me, it would be different. But like my dad, I remember growing up, although I looked up to him and like he did things that I thought was cool, and he was a cop, which was like really great, and like he did certain things, and I thought he fought for certain things or whatever.
mm.
What I remember the most about especially when I was really young, like pre-teenager, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I just remember always being worried that he was going to die. Like I just
Oh
remember
shit.
always like your dad's a cop, and like he would go out and he would work, from like fucking
Yeah,
4 in the
that's real.
afternoon till like
That's very
midnight or
real.
like till 3 a.m. I remember just like going to sleep before going to sleep at this time, like I was still young, still believed in God, still prayed and stuff. But I remember most of the times when I went to sleep, my prayer was just like, "Hey God, don't let my dad die out fighting bad guys." Like,
Yeah, and that's a very real. emotion that you had there, the fear of your father not coming home.
Yeah.
And you know what? They touch on that in the show too, because Kate's mom, right, like Eleanor, she literally crosses the kingpin because she's afraid for her daughter dying. She brings up Natasha. She says she's good at it, but Natasha was also good at it, being a
Yeah, when
vigilante
she
and
says
being a
that to
hero.
Hawkeye, dude, that was actually a really crazy moment. So, yeah, to put in the context, it's Kate Bishop, the main character's mom, talking to Hawkeye,
Hmm.
and her basically saying like, "My daughter's not a hero. I don't want her to be a hero." And like, I think Hawkeye says like she's good, like something.
Yeah, he does say she's good at it, and then that's immediately the mother says Natasha was good at it too, wasn't she? And he's dumbfounded.
Yeah.
He can't. There's no response to that because one, we know how hurt he is by what Black Widow did, her sacrifice. He fought to not have her sacrifice herself. Mind you, she doesn't have a real family like he does. Like he has a wife and kids,
Mm.
right? And he literally was about to give his life away to get the Soul Stone, and he fought her for it, and she won, right? And that fucks with him. That as we see him in the beginning of the show, his life just looks very miserable. This is a broken man that we experience in this whole show. He has hearing aids. He can't hear without them either. It's really bad.
Yeah.
He's beat
It's
up.
just like
Like
ringing. It's just like a constant ringing in his ears or something. Is what
it's
the show seems to portray.
yeah. It just shows how the wear and tear on being an Avenger on his body, because he's regular. He's not like the rest of them that has all of these ridiculous abilities and powers. He's just a regular human being. So when explosions go off,
I did think it was funny. I think Kate Bishop asked, like, you know, like, how did you lose your hearing? Why didn't you do the hearing aid? And then there's like a montage of
yes,
just the shit he's been through, and
all
it's
of
like,
these explosions that he's right
like, it's
next
hard
to.
to
You have
say.
to imagine.
Like, I don't.
Yeah, like I don't know exactly what the one instance was where it really went away, but the fact that I've been next to bombs exploding over a dozen times is probably it.
Yeah.
And so that montage is just literally clips from other Marvel shows and movies. I thought that was also cool too. I just love all the callbacks. But
Same.
when Eleanor says that line about Natasha was good at being a vigilante, being a hero too, and you think about Kate Bishop and how she's very young. When he meets her, he's like, "What are you, 18?" And she's like 22. He goes, "Same thing."
Yeah. I mean, it is the same thing.
It really is, though. I look at her as a kid as well. And in fact, the entire show, I couldn't help but to think of her. And mind you, she's 22. She's fully legal, grown, all that good stuff. But I could not help but to look at her as a kid. And
Yeah.
I guess that was a good thing, because her being 22 means that she's perfectly able to have some kind of a romantic relationship with Hawkeye, but that never happened. And I was glad for that.
Yeah.
I just, you never know when they have, like a main character who's a guy, and then a heroine like her. She's very pretty. She's a very beautiful girl. And I was like, I wonder if at some point this is going to get like weird.
Yeah.
And it's going to
Luckily,
be some
it
kind
didn't.
of. It
I
never
could
got
definitely
weird.
see a different timeline where it does. Like, well, there's a main boy and a main girl, so they have to have like some tension.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't try to force that narrative on us at all. I'm glad that there was never any awkwardness between those two as far as romantic stuff goes. It was just like we're partners, and it stayed on that level, and just showing that like a man and a woman can completely work together as partners, and it be completely, I forget the word for it, but platonic. Yes. Yeah. So I like that the show didn't do that. But when he asked her age, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh God, where is this going? So I'm just glad that that didn't come up. But anyways, yeah. So she is very rash, right? Like you can't tell her no. It seems like she's one of those people that you tell her not to do something, and she literally does the exact opposite of what you're trying to protect her from. So Kate is very headstrong and very gung ho to just go in and do what she thinks is right, no matter the situation, no matter how dangerous it is, no matter what her mortality rate could be in the situation. She just runs in headfirst into everything, and she survives. Honestly, she was put in so many situations throughout the course of the show that I was like, man, she's going to lose a limb or something.
Yeah.
Something is going to happen. She's just so rash.
That's part of like the Disney princess thing, where like she kind of just gets away with everything.
She goes against the Black Widow, bro. Honestly, at the end of the show, and this is like you said, it's like I enjoyed the show. I think it's entertaining.
Me too.
I'd probably say about all of them.
Like I legit really like the show, but I also think it's really bad.
Yes, and one of the things that I do think is bad about the show, right? Like I enjoy everything, but one of the things that is bad is just how unreal it is for this almost teenage girl. I'm just gonna call her that.
Yeah.
This almost teenage girl to be fighting against a Black Widow and winning. It's just not real. There's no training that Kate Bishop has
By
had.
the way, talk about training. She had like she did stuff growing up, but like her hero training, her Hawkeye training, the show takes place in 6 days. Like the show is 6 days long. Like that's it. The show is 6 days long. Each episode's a day. So like she did it like in 6 days. She's able to fucking fight a Black Widow. It's like, okay, son.
And I watched the Black Widow movie, which this show ties into the Black Widow movie. I thought that was also really decent. But we saw what the Black Widows go through.
Mm-hmm.
Their training is insane. They also can't have children, and there's all this vigorous mental and physical training that they go through. And Kate Bishop is 2 things that her mom called her. You are young and you are rich. And the only 2 people in the world who think that they're invincible are young people and rich people. And you're both.
Yeah, that was so. Kate's mom had some lines, yo.
Oh, Kate's
mom had lines.
Her mom is insane. I love Eleanor. I actually love the actress who plays her. I'm not even sure of her name, but I think that the way she looks, I knew that she was going to be evil in the end. Like I knew that she was going to be shady, essentially.
Yeah.
Because when you cast certain actors or actresses, they just have a natural typecasting look to them. And that actress has always played someone who's kind of like on the shadier side.
True.
So the second I saw her, I was like, okay, I don't know if the stepdad Jack is also in on it, but I said the mom is for sure something. Like she's for sure something more than just her mom.
So we were talking about this. The stepdad, they went so out of their way to make him look like a bad guy that it was like it became obvious that he wasn't a bad guy. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yep. Scooby-Doo. It reminded me of a pup named Scooby-Doo where every single episode had red herring in it.
Yeah.
And I grew up watching that cartoon. So as I was watching the show, you know, between all the stuff with the swords, then the butterscotch candy, it was a little too obvious and a little too early for them to be saying this is the bad guy. So I was like, well, it's just not him. Because in all of the Marvel shows, they kind of have a formula that I'm used to now. The first bad threat is never the actual evil threat. Like it's never the first. So an example would be Loki, right? The first threat is the evil Loki, the other Loki, the girl. And come to find out, it's actually Kang the Conqueror, right? Like he's the actual guy controlling everything. It's not a female Loki that's just actually evil in this entire plot. And the same thing can be said about WandaVision, right? Like Wanda's not actually per se evil. It's really Agatha doing all of this other crazy shit behind the scenes.
All along.
And so, yeah, Agatha all along, right? They even made a whole song about it. Speaking of songs,
stop.
This show has an amazing Broadway special that is like the Avengers Live, which I think is so funny.
It's so in the beginning, because it's such a Disney thing, because like you know the Disney on Ice and shit like that.
Yes, I used to love that. I love that. It's so Disney on Ice. They have
I can do this all day.
It's so good. It rhymes. I actually think that the Broadway aspect of it. So it's in the first episode when he goes with his kids to see like the Broadway play of the Avengers on Ice. And then at the end of the show, they show it again. And
but they show like a more full version at the end. I laughed so hard, by the way, like when Hawkeye, they were like talking about it, and he goes, "Why is Ant-Man there? He wasn't there." Like I laughed. He was like, "Why is Ant-Man wasn't even here?"
Yo, it's so good. Save the city and help us win. Save us from the state we're in. He just keeps singing that, and then. I don't know. I think that the way that they cast all of the fake Avengers, they look so bad. They just look so cheesy. Hey guys, if you like this clip, we have full video versions of our podcast episodes available on the IMNerd Patreon, as well as exclusive content.
If you'd like to listen to our full podcast episodes or find us on any other social media platforms, you can do so by clicking the link tree below.